So you've finished Control and you have some questions. Maybe you didn't check out all the collectibles the game had to offer. Or you've simply seen footage of the game and want to know what the fuck is going on. Well, I'm going to do my best to explain what happens in the game. This is based on a complete playthrough, extensive post-gameplay, and reading and watching all the collectibles I found along the way. Multiple times. Be warned, this video will heavily spoil Control, particularly the end of the game. Check out our spoiler-free review to see what we thought of the game, but I heavily recommend you all play it. And if you have any different theories of your own, make sure to drop them in the comments below. So last warning, I'm about to spoil the shit out of Control. Okay, so the Federal Bureau of Control was created sometime in the late 40s or early 50s to investigate and deal with paranormal scenarios known as Altered World Events or AWEs. These would occur all over the world, and it would be the Bureau's job to contain them. These AWEs would revolve around an altered item, an object from our world that has been infected with supernatural forces from different dimensions, known as thresholds. In the 60s, the FBC discovered an altered world event in New York City they dubbed a Place of Power, essentially an entire building that was an altered item. They called it the Oldest House, and it was only accessible to those who were looking for it. It was here they discovered the first object of power, the service weapon. Objects of power are much more supernaturally potent than altered items and are potentially able to transfer their abilities to human hosts through touch. The service weapon granted its user the designation of Director of the Bureau. Only certain people are able to successfully wield the service weapon. Those incapable of doing so are hurt or potentially even killed. Touching an object of power will also teleport you to the astral plane, a reality that exists in between dimensions. The astral plane is home to the Board, who for all intents and purposes are gods, and the potential creators of the multiverse. In 1968, the Bureau made the Oldest House its official headquarters, building control points to stabilize its ever-shifting form. They discovered additional objects of power all over the world, and the scale of the organization grew at a rapid rate. The director at the time, Northmore, seemed to grow hungry with the power given to him through the service weapon. Another agent of the Bureau, Zachariah Trench, either convinced Northmore to step down as director or assisted in his death. Either way, Trench was fortunate enough to be able to wield the service weapon and become the new director. Fearing that he might also succumb to the object of power, he wanted to make sure a strong successor was groomed for the position of director when the time came for him to be replaced. The Bureau discovered 5 prime candidates, designated P1 through P5. They were most likely children that were caught up in altered world events, however none of them were deemed worthy, and we still don't know what happened to any of them, but you can make your best guess there. The Bureau's luck changed, however, in the early 2000s, when prime candidates 6 and 7 were found. Dylan and Jesse Faden. They were discovered when the Bureau responded to an AWE in their hometown of Ordinary, where almost all of the population had slowly vanished over time. There were only 11 civilians found alive, including the young brother and sister. It was they that discovered an object of power, a slide projector, in the town dump. The projector, when specific slides were inserted, opened portals to different thresholds. Dylan, Jesse, and their friends for some time had been visiting these thresholds. As you can imagine, things went really bad. I'm a little hazy on the details because we mostly gathered this info from all of the supplemental pieces that you can find in the game, but it seems that creatures from other thresholds were seeping into Ordinary and potentially altering the population. Jesse and Dylan tried to escape, and they only managed to do so when they inserted what the Bureau would come to dub the Hand slide into the projector, named after the 5 pillars in the desert on the slide that look like fingers. The siblings were then spoken to by a voice from that threshold, a voice Jesse would affectionately name Polaris. Polaris explained to the children how to turn the slide projector off, bringing an end to the AWE. When the Bureau showed up, they took Dylan and attempted to take Jesse, but she was able to escape. Dylan would become Prime Candidate 6, although the FBC would monitor Jessie for the rest of her life in case Dylan proved to be a failure and they ever needed her, designating her Prime Candidate 7. Cut to the present day. Jesse and Dylan are both leading upsetting lives. Jesse was never able to come to grips with what happened to her in Ordinary, seeking counseling for her entire life, with the professionals treating her, trying to convince her what happened didn't really happen. Dylan was a guinea pig of the Bureau, as they ran tests on him to discover what abilities he might possess. All the while, the FBC studied the slide projector. After Polaris had shown Jessie how to shut off the slide projector, the young girl burned all the slides. Well, all but one, the hand, as it was Jessie's link to Polaris itself. The Bureau was frustrated with only having one slide to work with, but regardless, they sent expedition teams into the Threshold. The Threshold in the hand slide was perilous. It was a place where almost no communication could take place, as there was no sound, nor did radio work. There was a resonance to the space, vibrations in the air that tore some of the Bureau's astronauts apart. Nevertheless, Director Trench and the FBC's head of research, Casper Darling, kept leading expeditions into the hand slide threshold, until they came across the source of the resonance. Due to its shape, Darling dubbed the resonance Hedron. They built a container for it and brought it into our world. Trench, however, claimed to have heard a second, different resonance. This resonance was the Hiss. The main enemies of the game, the Hiss, are entities that invade other thresholds. It's possible that the creatures that attacked Ordinary were also the Hiss, although we don't know for sure. The Hiss seemed to be trying to spread across the entire multiverse, one threshold at a time, with the potential goal of invading the astral plane itself. Hedron was holding them back in the hand slide, but moving it into our world allowed the Hiss to corrupt the threshold. Over the years, as Darling studied Hedron, the Hiss poisoned Director Trench's mind. Hedron was able to sense that the Hiss were going to attempt to invade our world and set up a plan to stop them. It seems that Polaris was a piece of Hedron that bonded with Jessie due to her exposure to the hand slide threshold as a child. Hedron then awoke Polaris within Jessie as an adult, telling her to head to NYC and look for the Bureau. Meanwhile, Darling himself had discovered the Hiss resonance after exposing himself fully to Hedron. Using materials from the thresholds, such as Blackrock, he built Hedron resonance amplifiers to protect the workforce of the FBC. However, he only had enough time to make a few, and by the time a fully corrupted Trench reopened the portal to the hand slide, most of the Bureau agents were exposed to the Hiss. We are unsure of what happened to Darling, although he insisted he would not be around for the invasion. My best guess is he is in some other threshold, transported there by Hedron. Jessie shows up as the Bureau goes into lockdown. This is where the game starts. She discovers Trench having killed himself, most likely after he realizes what he has done. She picks up the service weapon, becomes the director, and takes on the Hiss that have corrupted the Bureau agents as she searches for her brother. Dylan, as a prime candidate, is able to delay the Hiss's influence, but dips in and out of their control. He breaks free of his cell, but ultimately turns himself in. Jessie finds him and realizes that her brother is somewhere underneath layers of not only Hiss, but the years of the Bureau's influence on him, the personality of P6 becoming its own identity. Jessie attempts to find the slide projector, and in doing so unlocks the vault containing Hedron. Opening up that vault, however, allows the Hiss to get in, attacking Hedron, as it is the only thing that is able to stop their invasion of our world and the astral plane. Jessie tries valiantly to save Hedron, but fails. With Hedron dead, nothing is able to stop the Hiss. The protective power of the Hedron resonance amplifiers is nullified, and even Jessie succumbs to their power. The end. Roll credits. Or so Remedy would have you think. But this is not the end. It is at this point where we jump into Jessie's mind. She imagines herself as a low-level employee of the Bureau, running around doing menial tasks. She has visions of Trench, herself, and Dylan as the Hiss's influence grows. But she calls upon Polaris, and is able to cleanse herself. Hedron, with the help of Polaris, transfers itself to Jessie, joining with the piece of it that it gave to her all those years ago, and purging the Hiss from her mind and body. The HRAs turn back on, now connecting to Jessie as a source of power rather than Hedron itself, saving the lives of the FBC agents she met along the way. Now threatened, the Hiss fully take over Dylan, breaking him out of his temporary cell and using him to stop Jessie from shutting off the slide projector. She is ultimately able to reach the projector, purge Dylan of the Hiss, and shut off the object of power. The game ends with Jessie embracing the role of director. Her brother Dylan has fallen into a coma. Whilst the hiss is no longer coming from the projector, there is still hiss left over that must be defeated. And that's it in a nutshell. What exactly is Polaris? What happened to Casper Darling or Prime Candidates 1 through 5? Who or what exactly is Artie the Janitor? And what was the real goal of the hiss this whole time? These are all questions we still have after playing the game, but I'm sure we'll get some answers in the upcoming expansions, as well as, fingers crossed, a potential Control 2. Again, if you have any different opinions on what exactly went down in the game, leave them in the comments below. Thank you everyone, and stay unranked.